Welcome to Reel to Reel Outdoors. Captain Adam Knudsen from Hiatus Charters here. Got a great group of guys with me today. Can't wait to introduce you to them and get talking about these topics. But first, we got to give a shout out to our sponsors, Captain Chuck's 2 here in Ludington, Michigan, and Ludington Beverage. All right, let's bring the guys in and get the show on the road. Go ahead, Chris.
Captain Chris from Dark Blue Charters up in Manistee, Michigan, but I think most people would recognize me from my YouTube channel, Tangle Tackle Fishing.
I'm Captain Micah Schmidt, Hiatus Charters, Ludington, Michigan.
Captain George Freeman, Freestyle Charters, Ludington, Michigan.
All right, welcome to Reel Outdoors, Captain's Roundtable. Today we are going to talk about kind of the dreaded full moon and maybe our approach to the fishing around a full moon and maybe some tips and tricks to make you a little bit more successful around that. The full moon, obviously there's a lot more light during the night, and they tend to feed all night long. And here's kind of our take on that, I guess. Anybody actually want to go first on this?
That's a tough subject. I mean, it really is. I mean, the full moon, you're right. It's a tough fishing condition. You really got to look for your morning bite, your glow stuff being out there. Get out there and get set up as quick as you can. Expect that bite to die off though, as the sun comes up. Not every time, but many times that bite's going to peter right off there. And you're going to struggle for several hours. But we talked about this before we started the camera. Don't be afraid on a midday trip. Don't be afraid to look for that midday bite. There's many times where the fishing's gone. It's 8 in the morning. You haven't had a bite in an hour and a half, and that full moon is still sitting up in the sky laughing at you. But come 10:30, 11 o'clock, or even a little bit later, all of a sudden that lunch bell rings, and they'll take right back off again. A lot of guys, I think, they quit too early, is what I'm trying to say. They get out there, 8 o'clock comes around, they haven't had a bite in a long time. They say, the heck with this, I'm not marking fish. The fish have scattered, or they've gone to the bottom. I'm done. I'm heading in. And all of a sudden they'll turn right back on. I tend to find that more in the full moon days than the non-full moon days. I think that lunch bell does go off.
Well, I take a pretty serious approach to the full moon. In fact, I had a call from a customer today asking about, a good date to go fishing. And on my calendar, I have full moon, June, July, August. It's circled, it's highlighted, and I plan my departure times, both my morning trip and my afternoon trip, revolving around, my experience fishing in the full moon. I've fished all night before. I've got customers that come to the dock at 4 in the morning before. I've had customers show up late on a full moon day, and of course, you tell them, well, I guess we'll see what happens, but you're late, and, it happens. But, we take the theory that, the fish feed every 3 to 4 hours, and if that moon's shining bright all night, we don't know when they're going to feed, but chances are, first thing in the morning, you got to get there and you got to get your baits in the water and you got to get what you can get. But at the same time, what you're saying is giving up too early, because it's going to come back around at 9 or 10, whatever time it is. And, generally we bank on that with our customers as it is. They're always kind of like lull period, and then before all of a sudden you're picking up rods, and in the back of my head, I know another rod's going to go before we're done. We're going to get another bite or another 2 bites, 3 bites, if you're have a really good end of the day bite. But my afternoon trips on that full moon is where it's really come around. I try to leave the dock at 2 o'clock, and I'm out there, I'm set up, and those fish, you can get them snapping between 3 and 4 o'clock, and the other charter boats aren't even leaving until 4. Right. They're calling me, I've got 6, 7, 8 fish in the bucket, and I'm like, well, I left at 2 o'clock today, and by the way, I'm going to be home at 8, and you're probably going to be sticking around until the night bite at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, again, whatever it is. But that's a true afternoon charter, and I guarantee I'll have a July afternoon on the full moon, and I'll leave at 2 o'clock, and my August afternoon, I think it's August 24th, which that's another part of my strategy. If the full moon is early in August, I try not to book an afternoon charter after the full moon in August. Yeah. Because I know those fish, they're going to get finicky and they're not going to bite till right at dark. And my afternoon charters, they're afternoons and evenings. If you want to see it dark, you come in the morning. I learned that from Captain Pat on the Camel. If you want to see it dark, you come in the morning, and I'm not going to stay out till 10 o'clock. Right. and have to be back on the boat at 4:30. So
I got a question. I don't mean, George, I know you're chomping to get going there and give all that great info, but a question for you, because I'm learning here. This is great information for me also. So do you find in the afternoon on your afternoon trips, the kings are out of temp or still in temp?
I mean, they're still, where they're supposed to be, but I'm still fishing, above the temp and below the temp.
So you do target some things above the temp?
Absolutely. Okay. And really the best in August, especially if you have a mixed bag of fish around, that's the best. Sure. Of course, if you're, hitting on those steelhead and some coho, younger salmon, and then pick away at some 4-year-olds. But I can go back in my pictures from the last few years and some of our best catches have been around the full moon on an afternoon charter. For the whole year. People ask, what's better? I always say, well, I recommend the morning, but that afternoon around the full moon can be a...
we have guys that come every year.
So what you're saying is I got to tell my customers they got to be at the boat at 3 in the morning.
You want them there early. Don't be late. Don't be late on a full moon.
Okay. Thank you. That's great info. Thanks for answering my question.
Yeah, I agree with what these guys have been talking about, that bright light, the fish feed all night long, and so you want to get out there in the dark and have everything together, and then it does taper off when it gets light. Now, we're talking about full moon when it's bright, but full moon when it's cloudy, it has to do with the light. Now, they've got the moon phase and the lunar tables or whatever, and game and fish tables, you see those. And, people ask me if I go by those, and honestly, I don't, because I'm fishing, no matter what it says. If this says prime time at 11 o'clock, doesn't mean I'm going to leave the dock at 9 and then wait to, gear up for 11 o'clock. I'm still leaving the dock at 5 a.m., and I'm fishing hard all through the day. Now, they might bite a little bit better then, hallelujah. But, I'm out there. So I think that, it's like an obvious statement, but it has to do with the bright light. Because if it's a cloudy night and the moon phase is full, I'm happy. I'm a happy guy. It doesn't bother me. It has all to do with that light and feeding all night. And, and that being said, when it does slow down, because of the lack of we don't have as many kings as we used to. And I think we're primarily talking about king fishing because, that's when we worry about it with the kings. But, I'll just fish closer to the bottom, go out a little bit deeper, fish closer to the bottom, maybe target trout a little bit more because they're going to feed all night too. But those trout are hungry animals out there, and they eat a lot of bait. And that time of year, when you're fishing in the summer, they're feeding on alewives, and they're, down near the bottom. They like it. I'd say they're more active on the bottom than a king would be on the bottom. A lot of times when the king's sitting right on the bottom, they're like in kind of a neutral mode, where a lake trout can still be, actively feeding when they're on that bottom. And then, especially if I'm fishing up north or fishing way south, when it gets to be, 10, 11 o'clock like that, I'll move in towards that point and come into that shallower 90 to 120 feet of water and hope to catch them feeding on some, bait fish there. But yeah, and I'm a stickler, even full moon or not. I don't like people being late in the morning. I had one first mate that said, geez, I just rather not have them show up at all than be late because it just kind of bummed me out, Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll try and take the non-charter approach. Obviously when you charters, you're fishing every day. You have a pretty rigid schedule that you kind of have to stick to, and there's a little bit of flexibility in it. But you want to make sure you're there and set up for that morning bite. So if you're going on a charter, make sure that you're on time. Make sure you already know how to get there. I don't know how many times we fish out of Harbor View, and we're here, but this marina looks different than it did last year. I'm like, you're not at this marina. But being punctual with fishing is important because especially when kings are around that morning, that first 45 minutes is can really depict how the day's going to go.
Make or break your day.
Well, really, you're not hurting anybody other than yourself, too.
No,
Sure.
absolutely. Yeah. But I've fished small boats and during the full moon, have stayed out quite late and actually caught fish, well after dark, doing that. But I think the Micah's midday thing, it works. I mean, it really does. It's I kind of thought he was crazy, and then he can go out and I'd see him the next morning and he'd be like, yeah, we got him. I don't know how you do it.
I did kind of work on this plan with Captain Glenn though too, so it might have been a little crazy.
But I think there's don't be discouraged with a full moon. Like Chris said, like don't leave early. I mean, if you're out there, stick it out. And I think you don't necessarily have to bail out to deeper water right away either. I think you can kind of hold in that shallower water. I don't think the fish are going to be as active. I don't think that you're going to have a huge flurry that lasts, an hour and a half, but you're going to probably have, fish that are actively feeding, at a slower pace, but you'll get those bites. Just stay in there, keep your program going. And
one thing I found, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
Normally when the bite turns back on, if you guys have ever bluegill fished, you throw your bobber in, what's the biggest fish you normally catch? The first one.
Yep.
Because it's the most aggressive, it's busting everything else out of the way. Normally when it turns back on, your first couple of fish are probably going to be your biggest fish because they're going to want to feed, they're going to get back up there and put that feed bag on. That's something I found over the years, but I just throw that out there.
Well, I think, oftentimes, especially anytime there's salmon around, a lot of times, you'll catch a big fish first thing in the morning, but you catch a lot of those big fish around 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of about 4 hours after their last feeding, they kind of fire back up.
That's one thing we always focused on in tournaments is, you get your morning rush and you'll get a few fish.
Get your numbers.
But you try to figure out, you try to be right back at the spot you want to be at when you think they might turn back on because that's when you're going to get your box. That's when you're going to get your big fish.
Yeah. Your upgraders, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little info on the full moon. I think, a lot of people are discouraged by it, but I think there can be some success to be had there. If your schedule dictates, try that. I think Micah's fished all night before. Him and a couple guys went out and they'd go out and fish the night bite and then literally fish all the way until the morning bite.
And it's fun when they're on, but like Captain George said, you need the moon bright. You got to have it. It's got to have light in the water. If it's cloudy, go home, go to bed.
And leave the beer at home.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's definitely not a good idea to drink all night. Do that. But keep trying things.
Yeah.
You never give up. George is one of those, like fishing with George. I mean, everyone should fish with George. I just think you should. I think everybody, the first time you fish with George, you have these butterflies you don't want to screw up. And then everybody else knows that, and then like torment you. But George never gives up. Like I think that's something that I admire about the way you fish. You fish as hard for the first bite as for the last one, and it makes a big difference. When you're changing those baits and constantly thinking of what's my next move. It's like a chess game. You're trying to think a few moves ahead, so you're back in that location where you want to be at a certain time, and not getting too far away from where you want to be at 10 o'clock. And those things are important and good information to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not giving up. Just thinking. It's because it's easy with fishing just to think, well, shoot, they're just not biting. No, but it's kind of like what Chris was talking about too. And Micah, don't give up too early. There's that time there, but you can like a lot of times when we're all competitive, right? We all want to catch fish, we want to help each other, but I want to come in with more fish than anybody else. And so does Micah, and so does Chris, and so does Adam, right? And so a lot of times, we talk and people got me in the morning. I don't have that. I didn't get them that good in the morning, but by the end of the day, I'm usually pretty much right there because the key is just keep sticking with it. Sticking with it.
Adapt.
Adapt. Right. Yeah, adapt.
Yeah, that's definitely
I've learned to listen to the people who are much smarter than me and know how to do this much better than I've learned to listen to those people.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, but don't give up. Don't
give up.
If you haven't had a bite, try something. Make a change.
Make that
a
turn.
bait change.
Make that
turn.
speed change. Bring this up a little bit. Lower this down a little bit.
Yeah. And then duplicate.
Yeah.
When you do get success, I think that's important. That's actually one thing I learned from you a long time ago, George, is duplicate to a T on what's been successful for you, whether it be a leader length, a depth, a speed. Look at all those things and duplicate.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought I always thought that was really, really good information.
Yeah, I think that, the more details that you can pay attention to and duplicate, the more success you're going to have, that's for sure.
Yep.
But anyways, I hope you guys picked up a few things. You'll be spending a little more time out there during that full moon phase, trying some of these ideas out. If you got any great tips, on full moon fishing, just contact me directly. I won't share that with anyone else. And, a big shout out once again to Cutwater and Captain Chuck's for helping us out, sponsoring this event today. And we can't wait to share some more information with you next week.